attack on our ports. Unfortunately, if you hold a critical infrastructure to ransom, you can stop quite a lot from an economic basis, and the losses that are suffered therefrom are quite huge. We've seen steel producers being hit by cyber attacks. Government institutions, unfortunately, still fall victim on a periodic basis to cyber criminals. Recently, we've seen data records being breached from the likes of a Discom and a TransUnion, with I think a leading ransom demand of around 225 million rand. Now, can you imagine your business being hit by a ransomware demand and those ransoms being in that region? Do you have the tools and the people and the knowledge and skills to help you in those moments? And two, do you have the deep pockets that it might require for you to pay a ransom and potentially then only then get the decryption key to get you back up and running? So these are some of the things that we need to consider. There is a poll that I'd like to run. Can somebody help me just run the poll, please? Caesar, is the poll ready? Yes, so I would like to know, have you, as in your business or in your personal lives, been affected directly by a cyber incident, ransomware attack, or the likes? Or do you know of someone within your business or within your life that has been impacted? Please, can you select your answers? We'll give like 2 minutes just to get the answers in, and then we'll run the answers. Are there any questions that have popped up at the moment that maybe we can look at?
Lwando?
Hi.
Morning, it's Candice.
Yes.
Voting is not enabled. So there's a red line. Is
it not enabled?
Yeah, it says hosts and panelists cannot vote. So can we change that so we're able to select, please?
Yes, I'm not sure. Caesar, are you able to assist there, please?
Hi, Candice. I'm not sure. I'm seeing a few responses on my end, so I'm not sure what could be the problem.
Okay. Let's see what the responses are looking like at the moment. Caesar, can you share the results?
Okay. So 12% people say there has been affected by a cyber incident. And let's see. So that's 107 people say they know someone who has been affected. And 87 people say they've never been affected.
So there you go. It just goes to show that it's something that is relevant in our lives on a day-to-day basis. You may have been directly affected by your business, by your personal lives, or you know of someone or a business that has been breached and compromised through a cyber attack. For those of you who have not at this stage, unfortunately, it's almost a matter of when will it happen rather than if it will happen. We do hope that it does not happen to you, but it is something that we are aware of and see. And looking at some of the stats, it will further show what we're seeing from a cybercrime perspective. So let's move on. So some further studies that have been done. So this is coming from the Perlmutter Institute. IBM does their annual cost of a data breach. In that circle, you see $4.24 million as the global average of what a data breach may cost the business. And that is then further broken down into the subsections that you see around that 4.24 million. The one number I'd like to sort of look at there is at 38% in purple, which talks to loss of business. So what happens in a cyber breach? Not only are you impacted in terms of your systems being locked out, potentially IT infrastructure being deleted, data being stolen and or corrupted. You also then have a potential reputation and a client management element that you have to look at, where you may lose business due to a lack of trust, lack of confidentiality, that has happened following the breach, and those customers are now looking to take their business elsewhere. And that is a huge number for any business to consider when it comes to. Oh, thank you. The poll that just popped up. Great. Let's move on. That 38% becomes a very significant number in when it comes to a cyber attack. Your business cannot afford to lose up to 38% of their customers, of their revenue, because of a cyber incident. Some other numbers there, which let's move on. So what does that look like from a South African perspective? So we have seen that in South Africa, the average cost has risen to 55 million, up from 36 odd million in 2020. So these are 2021 numbers. We will see the next report come out later in the year or early next year for 2022. But these are quite relevant to show you where we are. And what is the most common type of record that has been compromised? That is your personal information. So that is your name, your address, your ID, all that kind of information that pertains to you, that can be used down the line, unfortunately, to create fraudulent accounts in your name. Therefore, you might find yourself blacklisted at any one point in time because you have fake home loan accounts, car loan accounts, credit accounts on cell phone contracts and the like. So when you do actually legitimately want to go and open up a credit account for any reason, you may find yourself in the blacklist category, unknowns to you because of a data breach which has stolen that data. And just to further compound that, what is the cost of the average cost of one record being compromised? And that's currently sitting at around 2,700. So if we were to do some maths and we said that your business is holding around 10,000 clients' information, each one of those clients' information had to be compromised at a cost of 2,700. We're looking at around about 27 million rand, cost to the business just on those data records alone being compromised. So every time we ask you around, what does a data record count look like from the business? How are you safeguarding that data? Is it encrypted? These are all the elements that we look at from an underwriting perspective, which impact, and is driven by the fact that the value of the data is being sold on, as well as the cost that businesses directly get impacted by when a data breach happens, is quite high. So this is something that you need to note. Another number that I would like to sort of just talk to a little bit is the average duration to detect and contain. So what that means is that it takes almost 9.5 months for you and for your business to actually identify that you have been compromised. So this tells us that hackers are so sophisticated in their techniques that they can infiltrate your business and your systems, learn how your business is operating, see where all the keys to the kingdom are, steal data, move data, corrupt certain elements, and without going detected for up to nine months, and that is quite, again, an alarming amount. When the time comes, they've got everything that they need to really hurt you when it comes to a ransom demand, to say, okay, we've now got everything that we need, please pay us 100 Bitcoin or whatever the value might be. Again, does your business have the tools to firstly identify those sort of attacks, to contain them and to eradicate them from your business? This is again where the cyber policy will assist you by providing you the experts to help you when you have identified and suffered that breach. Some other stats I'd like to look at here would be, 75% of companies were hurt by a ransomware attack over the last year. Again, this is up, and we're seeing this trend time and time again, with ransomware being a key driver when it comes to losses suffered by businesses. Companies, unfortunately, when they're faced with these ransomware attacks, 64% are paying those ransom demands, and unfortunately 4 out of 10 of those who have paid are not getting their data back. So again, this goes to show that, do you have the skills that it takes to negotiate with the attackers? And the attackers, unfortunately, are quite smart. They know when a client is not being supported by skilled experts. They're able to push the right buttons, and when they know that they've got you, the demand typically tends to rise. And when the demand rises, and if you pay, and without you being able to identify who the attackers are, they may not even live up to their end of the bargain. So again, these are some of the critical elements which a cyber policy can give you the experts to help you with that ransom negotiation. Some other stats to look at there would be 43% of small businesses do not have a cybersecurity plan, and only 23% of those businesses are providing cyber awareness training to their employees. We have found that where companies are providing cyber awareness training, this has led to higher success rates in identifying and mitigating the risk of clicking on false links, going to spoofed websites. So these are some of the things that we are easy enough to implement within businesses, cost effective, and can help you to reduce your risk quite significantly just by having an awareness program implemented. Unfortunately, 43% of cyber attacks are still aimed at small businesses. As mentioned, we are talking about small businesses today, and 14% of these small businesses are prepared to defend themselves. So what does that mean? Again, going back to cybersecurity plans, going back to cybersecurity awareness training, do they have the right tools implemented? Have they even thought about what the cyber attack landscape may look like? So again, these are some of the things that you can take home and you can share with your clients to show them that you are actually a target. It's no longer just big corporates who are being targeted, or banks or the likes. It can be you as a small business, even though you may feel that you don't have data requirements, or you may not have the most sophisticated business model. So ransomware, let's talk about ransomware. Unfortunately, ransomware has come on with a vengeance, targeting small and medium businesses over the last couple of years. We have seen that the incidents of ransomware have increased by 85% over the last year or so. The demands that we're seeing as well are up, 144%. From an IT perspective, we have seen ransom demands of upwards of 70 million rand. Unfortunately, for those clients who have had the IT policy, we didn't have to go as far as paying the demand, because we were able to help the client to recover their data, as well as get back up and running quite quickly. And again, that's just showing you the value of having a support system that is purchased through a cyber insurance policy. Again, going back to the average payments have increased. You'll see there that 78% of the average payments increased in 2021. We're looking at around 35 million as the average demand, and about 8 million has been the average payments. Again, this varies from business to business. Your business may be on the higher end of that scale. Other business may be in the lower end. It all depends on the significance, how significant the attack was on your business. And then there's something else that leads to the publicly being shamed about having a compromise. So we've leaked your business, we've published on public sites. Maybe part of that has been some very sensitive information about yourselves, about your directors. All of these things become, get put into the public eye, which then lead and impact further on the reputational side of things from your business. Again, another thing that we have to consider is that ransomware has become a service. You and I do not need to know how to code, do not need to know how to create a malware variant. All we need to do is have access to the dark web, which is easy enough. And from there, you can literally hire a trained attacker who has all the ransomware variants or malware variants that can be used to then do the attack that you wish them to do. So again, this is all lowering the barrier to these sort of attacks. Where people are desperate and they want to make money, the easiest way to potentially do it is by going to purchase these variants and then initiating some sort of a malware ransomware attack on a business for demand. And as seen, where businesses don't have the support system, don't have the skilled staff, and don't then have a policy to support them further, they will most likely pay those ransoms. Can be small amounts, but if you attack multiple businesses with multiple small amounts, that becomes a huge payday for you. So these are some of the things that we're looking at. And then there are zero-day attacks. So what is a zero-day attack? So this is now where there are vulnerabilities being exploited that were previously unknown. So the prime example of this was what we saw in December last year with the Log4j, where in the span of a week from being identified as a vulnerability to a released, one of the leading endpoint security service providers, Symantec, noted that they were blocking almost 90 million attempts at using that exploit. So again, just goes to show that hackers are always looking for avenues to get into your businesses. Security doesn't always stop you, because there are always a new vulnerability that can be found. And the hackers, because they're so active, once those have been found, they are quick to try and exploit those avenues. Now, with that landscape being said, maybe let's put it into a practical context with a short video, just to show you the impact of a cybercrime may have on your business.
Another shot. Has that been open the whole time?
Look at the B and the bike on our logo.
Seen the other side of the road.
Oh, is that my twin? Oh, it's a fake Brompton.
It's exactly the same.
What the hell?
I've had people walking past are like, what are two Brompton stores doing right opposite each other?
So weird.
Like, I feel like I'm in some parallel universe.
That's a couple who were just in here, right?
Yeah.
They bought a bike.
They walked in from here.
And then they went over there.
Type in their website.
I'm really confused.
Go walk over there.
We just wondered what was going on. He was like, do you want to test out one of our bikes? No. They've got the same tags as us.
They're having those of Bromptons delivered into their shop.
What?
What's happening?
I think these are our...
Delivery, diff 146.
You sure this isn't delivery for over in the inside room?
Brompton. No, it's here, mate.
Are you Brompton?
No, Brompton.
No, I can't even tell. What the hell? All right, we've got customers.
Hold on.
Hi, guys.
How much are in a Brompton? How many parts?
Give us a demonstration. There's a couple of different methods.
Sorry, just 1 second, sir.
How many parts? Sorry. Actually, yes, stand back. Componentry, materials.
Gary, what's the smallest
If
size?
you don't want the mud guards, take them off.
See you later. Bye-bye. See you.
What was that?
The guy said, tell me your favourite 3 things about the tyre.
What the hell is going on?
You're getting closed down.
Really? What should we do?
Whoa, 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 whoa.
What are you doing? Can you take the sign down, please?
This is not okay.
The fact that you don't know what to do in that situation, it's daunting, really.
It's one thing if you see it online, but as you see it right in front of you, it kind of really brings it home that this is happening probably everywhere with every brand.
I was in so much shock, I was just going to take my t-shirt off and just walk out. I was like, what is going on? Like,
To see the company that you work for being undermined like that kind of really makes it real.
Every hack in this film is based on real criminal methods.
And there you have it. So that gives you a very nice view of, a real world take on what a cyber attack can look like, from your company and website being copied, from a phishing attack to redirect your customers to the fake website and your inventory, to a ransomware attack, denial of service attack as well, to sort of overload the real website with so many requests that they can't handle, whilst the attackers are doing other things behind the scenes, as in stealing your stock, and then finally hitting you with a ransom demand for you to then unlock yourself and get back up and running. So this just shows you, again, practically something you can, hopefully use as a tool as when you're talking to your clients, that this is something real. We may not know what the term cyber, stands for. It's so intangible, but this is a nice tangible way for you to just sort of get exactly what we are talking about today. So moving from there, what is cyber insurance? Where does cyber insurance fit in? How is the policy triggered? How does this then help your clients? So the first thing I want you to take home is that there are 2 triggers to the policy. Being a network security breach. So what does this mean? This means that your IT infrastructure, your network, your client's business IT infrastructure has been either compromised in some way, has been hacked, has been some unauthorized use of that network in any which way. So if any one of those things happen to that network, it will constitute a network security breach. Therefore, the policy would then be triggered and deploy the necessary response. The second avenue would then be a privacy breach. The breach talks to an unintentional infringement to the rights of privacy of any third party. Could be employees, could be your customers, could be suppliers, could be any general public third party. An example of this would be where you may have inadvertently posted something on your social media, and in the background of that post had some sensitive information, which led to some damages to a third party. That third party then sues the business because of that information, which is now in the public sphere, and the policy will then pick up that liability and triggering that privacy breach element of the policy. So those are always the 2 key areas of the policy. So if you're looking at is the scenario a could this scenario trigger the policy? You have to understand that, one, was it a network breach? Was there a hacking system? Was there some sort of unauthorized use of the insured's actual network? Or was there some sort of privacy breach, via their social media platforms, their website, and the like? So some of the areas that this could come into would be things like corporate espionage. So your company is busy rivaling with another company, and one way to try and get up a leg would be to try and hack into that other company and see what they're up to, or to delete the progress that they've done and slow them down. So you can potentially be first to market for a product, as an example. So that is where corporate espionage within come. Cyber extortion, I've touched on elements of cyber extortion. So you've been hit by some ransomware or some sort of malware, and then there's a demand. What happens with that demand? The policy will then cover you. I'll talk a little bit more about cyber extortion on the next slide. Denial of service tax. So a great example was shown in the video where the store was overwhelmed by more customers than they could handle, with queries that probably didn't make sense, but they still had to try and respond to those queries as part of their service levels, therefore not actually getting to make the sales that they were looking to make. Downstream attack. The downstream attack talks to where your environment as the insured has been compromised, and because your environment is also potentially linked to other environments such as your clients, they use that link between yourself and your clients to further institute an attack to those clients. Those clients suffer damages, and those damages can all be covered under the policy. Hacking, as mentioned, hacking to your network. Insider and privilege misuse. This is a very interesting one where now we're not talking about a unknown third party. We're talking about you and me as potential employees of the business who may be disgruntled for whatever reason. I may be on my way out, and because I didn't get the promotion, or because I'm leaving in a manner that I wasn't prepared to leave by, I then leave some sort of a malware attack into the system, therefore destroying part of the network, or encrypting it, and slowing the business down and costing the business some financial impact there. So these are some of the things that you think that a hacker is always coming from an unknown third party somewhere overseas, but it could be an employee that you worked for many years, and for whatever reason they've decided to be the malicious actor in the scenario. Malware, again, as we mentioned. Physical theft and loss. So physical theft and loss talks to your physical devices that you use to connect into your network, so such as your laptops, your cell phones, your tablets. So any device that is portable that you may then use to work on or to connect into your corporate network, those devices being stolen, and those devices then being used to gain access, to gain unauthorized access into that network, and then instigate some sort of cyber attack. So what the policy does not cover is the actual cost of the device being stolen. So your laptop being stolen, we won't cover the cost of the laptop itself, but we will do monitoring in the event that laptop should then be compromised to be used to further instigate an attack into the network. So all of those costs will then be covered from a monitoring perspective, to sort of check that has those devices potentially been used to gain unauthorized access. There'll be remote wipe services also being deployed to manage those devices so they can be wiped clean in the event that to try and prevent any further data leak or any data loss. We then talk about threats posed by third parties. So this is now the other way around from a downstream attack, where you have third parties that you possibly outsource part of your network to, or they have plugins into your networks for whatever reason. Those third parties have suffered some sort of malware or have some malware on their network, and that malware your networks causing you some sort of damage on your network. The policy will then trigger under the network security breach element. So as you can see, there's quite a lot of elements that go into what a cyber policy can cover, thus making the policy a lot broader than one might expect. So to further illustrate this, we like to look at it in 3 pillars. The first pillar being the incident response base, the incident response pillar. So this is now, what do you get on the ground? What is the policy actually paying for? These are your service providers that the policy gives you access to. So we give you access to your incident IT forensic services specialists, who will then come in as a first port of call to start doing the triage, doing the containment, and start helping with any recovery that might be required following a breach into. So these are obviously key specialists who have worked in this field for many, many years, have specialized tools and techniques in order to be able to identify and contain malware from running rampant throughout the business, as well as to help you with any recovery efforts. The forensic investigations throughout the whole process will be detailed in order for you to understand what exactly have they been doing on your network. The policy will then also afford you access to legal services, so legal counsel, who will then help you with any legal aspects that you may need to attend to following a breach. So for example, if you have a data breach, we have POPI regulations that require you to, one, notify every single affected party, and two, also represent yourself to the POPI information regulator, explaining, why were you breached, how was it breached, how were you managing the breach, and the whole reason for that is for them to ascertain were you negligent in your security controls, in your handling of the data breach, and should they potentially impose a fine, on your business for the handling of that. So that's where the legal team will come in to help you with all those regulatory requirements, contractual requirements from, what happens if you are unable to meet contractual deadlines, other remedies that you can follow. They will give you all that guidance and help you, and all of the costs that covered under the policy. We then look at things such as your crisis management. So crisis management will look at your reputational elements. What happens to your business following a breach? How do you manage the reputation of the business? The PR experts will then come in to help you craft the message, craft your communication across multiple channels to multiple stakeholders, from internal to external, to ensure that what the business is saying, one, aligns to what the business would like to share, as well as is managing and trying to minimize any further reputational damage that might come following a breach. We have seen where businesses have been hacked. Unfortunately, they go and that hack is now in the media, so now they need to make a statement. Because the people making the statement are untrained, and they haven't gone through a program which the crisis team would help them to sort of navigate. What they've said in the public has unfortunately made the breach even more. It made it worse for the business. So from that aspect, that's where the crisis team comes in. It'll help you, will give you coaching for your communications person, whoever needs to be making the statements, give them coaching, guide them through what they need to say, what they shouldn't say, and just help to package the whole chain of events in a way that puts the business in a much better light. Other things to consider under incident response would be things such as notification expenses. So data breaches happen, you've got 1,000 clients that have been potentially affected. You need to notify each and one of those 1,000 clients. There is a cost to notification, no matter which method that you're using. All those costs will then be picked up on the policy. Policy will then also offer you services such as credit and identity theft monitoring. So for those potentially affected customers, the services will be implemented for a duration of time. We will monitor, the dark web and other aspects. We'll notify the relevant banks, notify other credit providers that these customers' data have potentially been compromised, and there may be new inquiries coming in their name to open up accounts. So all of those costs to do that monitoring service will then also be covered under the policy. Remediation services, again, talks to the data recovery and systems from the forensic side, and then cyber extortion. So I mentioned we'll talk a little bit more about cyber extortion. Cyber extortion, one, you're getting access to specialists who will firstly validate any extortion demand. So do the hackers actually have what they say they have? So they've said that they've stolen data from server B. The team will first investigate, has that server been compromised? And if yes, what exactly has been compromised from that server to validate the claim? So if I say that I've hacked your systems and I've got access to all of your client information, personal, financial, health records, whatever you have on your network, that will be validated. What they will then do once that has been validated, they will then start the negotiation. So these guys have experts in negotiation stemming from a time spent in the likes of Secret Service, Interpol, using all of those connections and all that experience to try and help to negotiate on your behalf and help you to get the best outcome. So they'll negotiate with the attackers, speak the same language. They'll be able to try and identify who the attackers are. And the reason why that is very key is that in the hacker community, their reputation is key. So by identifying who the hackers are, they can then use that information should those attackers not live up to the end of the bargain once the negotiation has been done. So if, for example, we say that, we'll go through the whole process, you need to pay 100 Bitcoin, we've identified who they are, we then pay the ransom, and the hackers do not give us the keys that we need to unlock your systems, the team can then go into the dark web circles where that reputation is very valuable, and essentially tarnish reputation by making it known that this group does not live up to their bargain, and therefore, as I mentioned before, because ransomware is a service now, that group may not then get further business within those circles. So that's part of why having experts on your side can help you to get the best results at the end of the day. So once we've done negotiation, once we've validated that do have what they have, we negotiate the ransom to an amount that makes sense, whilst trying to use other avenues to try and get you back up and running without having to pay the ransom. Should it come to a point where the ransom needs to be paid as the last resort, the policy will then take that next step following OFAC checks where we are bound by sanctions requirements to check all the hackers that we're dealing with already listed on sanctions list. If not, the policy will then be cleared to pay the ransom payment on your behalf. So that is where the value of the extortion cover comes in, and the incident response as a whole. So from your IT forensic and team to your legal service, crisis management, and the extortion ransomware negotiators, we're all on your side, and all of their costs and their time, as well as the ransom payment, will then be covered under the policy. The next pillar then becomes, what is the financial impact to you as the business, the first party costs that the business will suffer during this whole crisis that you're going through. And the biggest thing there would then be business interruption. So business interruption, you suffered a ransomware attack, your systems are offline, you're unable to email, you're unable to gain access to your networks, you literally can't do anything, you're down for a week. There is a cost to not being able to trade for that period of time. That is where your business interruption comes in. The policy will then reimburse for that period of time that you have suffered that loss. There is a calculation built into the wording, which will then show you what those losses and what the cost will be. Other things that can be included under the financial impact would be, do you need to bring in additional resources, hire other specialists, have another team, work overtime? And all of their costs will then be covered under the policy as well, in terms of the first party costs that you have to pay for those resources to try and help you to recover. The policy then also makes provision to pay fines and penalties where insurable by law. So for example, once we start seeing fines being issued by the information regulator, those fines and penalties may be picked up by the policy should the law allow us to do so. What the policy will still give you the access to cover all the costs required to build your case and to report to those regulators, and all the costs that surround that will still be covered in the policy. And where we then allowed to pay any fine or penalty, the policy will then be ready to pay those fine and penalties. So that then just gives you the second pillar, where now you as the insured, your first party costs are also covered via your business interruption that you may suffer following a breach. The third pillar from this would then be the liability. So what happens when there has been a data breach? Customers' data has been compromised. Those customers are now suffering further damages via fraudulent attacks on those customers because of this data. They then find out they suffered going through all this costs and damages because of the breach. Liability can then come onto our insured via a lawsuit of some kind. The policy will then extend to defense and settlement of those suits, and this also talks to your digital media space. So we mentioned social media, your websites, and all of that. So if you're posting and you're constantly engaging in the public sphere, if you inadvertently engage with content that may be damaging to any third party, the liability element will then pick up. So that, sort of in a nutshell, is what a cyber insurance policy will give you, from your incident response, from the specialist, to your first party costs from a business interruption, to third party costs from a liability aspect. So this is what a policy covers. To further then improve and add on to the policy, we have some optional extensions that we have bolted onto the policy that can widen the coverage that we're giving to the clients. So depending on the nature of the business, depending on how they operate, some of these may be applicable, some of these may not be applicable. I'll touch on 3 that we see on a more regular basis. And if you do have questions, we can then talk to any of those at the end of the session. So the first one that we see quite a lot would be outsourced service provider. So what does this talk to? This talks to where you as the insured have outsourced a part of your network management or administration within your business to a third party. that third party suffers some sort of cyber incident, leading them to not be able to provide those services you contracted them for, and you are now suffering a interruption in that service and costs surrounding that interruption. The outsourced provider will then cover those costs, as well as any costs that may be required for you to change service providers should that one service provider which has been affected not be able to service you in a quick enough time or at all going forward, because of the nature of the incident that they've suffered. So all of those costs will then be picked up on policy, and the OSP endorsement is where those costs are covered. This endorsement is sublimited to a maximum of 50% of the main limit. So if you purchase a 10 million Rand policy, the maximum that you'll get for OSP will then be 5 million. The other one I'd like to talk to will be initial response phase. So the initial response phase essentially acts as a deductible waiver. So for a period of time, starting from when the notification of the incident has happened, up to a period of 72 hours, all costs that have been incurred through the forensics, through legal, through any of the elements that we've spoken about so far, the client will then not be required to pay deductible on those costs. So this becomes essentially a deductible waiver. So for that first period upfront, all costs that have been incurred will be fully covered by the policy without the requirement of the client to pay a deductible. The last one I would like to touch on this one will be e-financial loss. So e-financial loss talks to when a client has then suffered a theft of funds. As a standard, a cyber insurance policy does not cover theft of funds. What we then do, we then have the financial loss module where you can purchase that module to then bring back the coverage for theft of funds. So you suffered a data security breach, you've been hacked into your system. Through that hack, the attackers have been able to gain access to credentials, which has allowed them to either steal money from your fund account, or access to your emails to redirect funds and change banking details and the like. Those funds then go to the wrong people. You're now down out of pocket, and that's where e-financial loss will then help you to reimburse some of those funds. Again, this is a sublimited cover, where we are offering only 250,000 as a minimum, up to a maximum of 10% of the main limit. So those are the three I'd like to touch on. I'm cognizant that our time is running quite quickly. Happy to discuss any of the others later on, should there be questions. So now that you know what the policy offers, how do you then get this policy? What considerations do you need to have in mind when you're engaging with your clients? So our requirements would be a full proposal form. The proposal form will then go through all of the risk factors listed on your screen right now, from industry, revenue, to security reviews, through to resiliency, which talks to your disaster recovery plans, your backups, and the likes. All of those factors would be then asked in quite a long and comprehensive questionnaire. The reason why we have this questionnaire is that, given the nature of what we're covering, it's very hard for us to underwrite without having to go through each and one of these areas. And these areas will then almost highlight to the client what is important from an insurance perspective. When we ask certain questions around, are you patching, are you doing patching within a certain period? Are your passwords within, length of character? So all of those things will then be put into a long form, and these are some considerations that we'll go through in order to give the client a policy. And to get to the main focus of what we're saying today is that for SMEs, we understand that maybe the long form may not be always applicable for them, it might be harder for them to complete. They may not have such sophisticated systems that require that long form. We have then created a shorter form to try and help our clients. This will be what we have called our I2Go InstaQuote. It will be a short one-pager, or two-pager, but essentially a one-page in the sense that you have one page where you have a few underwriting questions to complete, and on that same page, you then have a pre-underrated rates. So what would that look like? That would look like as the table that you're seeing now on your screen. The cover that the clients will get will be exactly everything we've spoken about. So it's a full cover. The only caveat to the covers would be that loss of business income, so business interruption cover, is then supplemented 50%, as well as cyber extortion. Considering the cost that we're seeing from a ransomware perspective, we've had to supplement this cover in order to keep the cost for this product much more affordable for our clients. So now the enhancements that we have gone through for the refresh, which is coming up in 1 August, we have then split some of the limits. So previously, you look at the annual turnover bands, it would have gone to 100 mil and then 100 mil to 250 mil. So we've split that 100 to 250 mil to add 2 extra bands, to add a band for those who are only between 100 and 150, and those between 150 and 200. So that then that means that, you know, if you're at the lower end of that 100 to 250, you can benefit from lower rates and not be penalized the same as those who are closer to the 250 mil annual revenue band. Further to that, we have reduced our minimum deductibles for this coverage. Minimum deductible used to start at 15,000. As you can see now, it starts at 5,000. So this will be what we are now offering our clients. So less underwriting questions, as well as more affordable deductibles as part and parcel of this product. And the next step to that is that we've actually added 2 additional covers as a standard package to this. So not only do you get the core coverage, but you get the financial loss cover, which we've spoken about, up to 250,000, and then the physical damage cover will also be included as standard up to 250,000. So what is physical damage? So physical damage talks to where you as insured have physical assets network linked. That network to those assets is compromised, and through that link and through that compromise, through that network, those assets are then damaged in some way. So the cost of either fixing or replacing those assets can then be picked up under the cyber policy, where that has been the nature of the damage to those assets. This is quite valuable, as we're seeing that where your traditional assets policies do have quite strong and stringent cyber attack exclusions, where damages to those assets traditionally wouldn't have to be by physical peril, such as flood, fire, someone crashing into your house as an example, or the likes. Whereas what we're talking about here is that there is no physical elements coming in. It's a hacker, an attacker, a third party, a virus of some kind, which has led to damages to those physical assets. And that's where the physical damage endorsement then comes in to sort of cover those costs. It is sub-limited to 250,000 again, but this is now standard coverage, which will be bolted on to this policy. So just as to recap, we have simplified the underwriting questions. Instead of having a full 7 to 10 page questionnaire, the client has a 2-pager with about 3 questions on them. We've reduced the deductible structures. We've increased the revenue band. So if you're at the higher end, you can benefit by not being lumped into a bigger brand than previously had, as well as the additional modules that are now covered as standard. Some things to note on the ITGO short form is that there are restrictions when it comes to industry. So there is a drop down on the form that you have to go through, where the industries that are covered are clearly marked, and those which are not covered are also clearly marked. Wherever you see that there is a referral next to an industry cluster, that requires you to firstly engage with the I2 team to check, is there something that they can still go into ITGO, or do they need to then go and complete the full long form? And then we will then engage with you on that further. The other one is to consider again is that revenue is capped at 250 million. So there may be an industry that qualifies for ITGO, but the revenue may be above 250 million. Then unfortunately, because of the size of the client, would have to go the longer route from a underwriting perspective. Then the other thing would then be the pre-underrated rates that you see on your table, as well as the underwriting questions, which will need to be answered in the affirmative. So the process is still the same as previously, just the additions that we've gone through now as an enhancement and something to look forward to. Like I said, we will be officially launching this for all our clients coming 1 August, which is in about a week and a bit from now. So having seen all the risks, the landscape, what the policy offers you, what can you advise your clients in terms of helping them to sort of minimize the impact of the breach, or even to mitigate the breach to some extent? Some of the elements that we like to consider would be things such as your incident response plans, where clients have a plan firstly, and have that plan tested on a regular basis. They are more ready to attend and to attend to a breach, and therefore reducing the time that a breach may take to actually resolve versus those businesses that don't actually have an incident response plan. So these are some things which are quite cost effective for the business that they can do. Putting together a plan, understanding who are the role players, which are the key systems, how are these key systems linked to the business, how would they be impacted should they suffer some sort of cyber attack, how long would it take for them to recover, understanding all of those tools and putting it into a documented process and testing those processes and refining them year in, year out just helps them when it does actually happen to your business. One, you know who the key players that need to be contacted, and that then helps the process go a lot smoother. As well as when you do have a cyber insurance policy, it helps the team that comes in that you've got a very organized business. They can then do their business even more efficiently, and therefore reducing that time even further. And another tool to sort of adopt within a business would be trust model. So what does zero trust mean? Zero trust means that essentially every time you need to access part of the network, instead of you as a user getting one at the start, when you log into your machine, and now you've got unfiltered access throughout the business. Every single time you want to do something, you have to re-authenticate yourself. This usually adds tools such as two-factor authentication, where there is a PIN or some sort of additional verification step that needs to be implemented before you gain access into those systems or to do that action. This again helps the business from, if my credentials have been compromised, now they can use Lwando's credentials, gain full unauthorized access into I2, whereas at every single step, so going to a certain system, there's another sort of authorization element, which will then block the attackers from gaining further access into those sensitive systems. Another thing to look at would be to use sort of better paid for tools that can help to monitor endpoints. So we talk about your antivirus protection. So don't use free antivirus software. Use paid for products which are now also offering artificial intelligence, which help to continually monitor, track, and identify new threats and blocking them before they even can do some damage within the business. So these are some of the tools that your business can look for. All of these systems are available, and they are quite cost effective. They're no longer an expensive tool when we're talking about antivirus and a paid for solution. Another thing is to consider encryption, where your data is being stored, whether it's being stored on site, on a server on site, or stored in the cloud environment. If that information, if that data is all encrypted, a hacker gaining access into that system, into that data, would still, unfortunately, to decrypt the data before it can be usable, therefore making it a lot more harder for them to sell that data onto a third party and making a profit, almost nullifying ransom demands where data has been encrypted and they are unable to decrypt that data. So these are some of the elements that your businesses and your clients can then consider implementing just to help mitigate and minimize the effect of the cyber incident. So just in closing, unfortunately, cybercrime is on the rise. South Africa is definitely not immune. We've seen the cases in the press, so we're seeing the cases, from an insurance perspective, our losses are increasing, our notifications have increased 200% over the last couple of years, just to show you that we are seeing the incidents that are coming. There's also regulatory requirements to look at, so things like POPI and GDPR from the European Union. Hacking is indiscriminate. It's not always a case that your client specifically was targeted by a hacker. It's a matter of there was a phishing attempt done, an employee fell victim to that phishing attempt, and from there, their credentials were potentially exposed, and that was in use to further to create an attack further from there. No security is again infallible, as we just mentioned. Your employees could be the weak link, not just the security not being in place. Disgruntled staff. What do you do with the staff who has the access, who has the authorized access, then uses that access in an authorized manner? Can you really prevent that from happening? POPI has also said that you can't pass the buck. So if you have administrators doing data on your behalf, they cannot be solely responsible for that data. You still remain a data custodian. And again, effective incident response is key. So having those plans, having them tested, and having that process fully documented just helps your business to get up and running a lot quicker. And that brings us to the close of this Cyber Thursday session. I hope you enjoyed. I'm not sure if there's any questions that we can take right now. Got a few minutes before the hour is up. Are there any questions there, Candice?
Hey, Lwando. Hi, there is a question from Dion. Can we have this on audio? As I put in the chat section, the session is being recorded. A second question, would you be able to share the video that you shared in the presentation? Would you mind?
Yes, we can share the link. It's a YouTube video. So it wasn't created by us. It was created by another insurance company in the UK, but it's available on YouTube. So I'm happy to share that link, and it's quite a useful video for you to share with your clients as well as your staff. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you. There were some questions I did answer in the Q&A section. You can find those answers under the Answered tab. Other than that, tons of thank you and awesome session and well done and all of that. So good job.
Fantastic. If there's no further questions, then I will bid you adieu. Have a great day further. Do drop us an email if you do think of any other further questions. If you have any queries on the products, on the I2Go refresh, we're happy to share any additional information with you going forward. But yes, thank you from me, and thank you to the guys who assisted with the questions in the Q&A. Yeah, have a great day further.